stinks. A whole bunch of taxpayers' money has been wasted.
Businessman Anthony Marquardt made millions of dollars selling some land to Regina's global transportation hub.
People learned of a public relation problem for the French company in charge of building the P3 project.
There's thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff there that they are destroying for no reason at all.
The taxpayers of this province have not been well served by this particular project.
It isn't a bypass, it's just a get-rich scheme.
This does not solve any problems.
They're not listening to the people.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
We're talking about a generational debt that in 15, 20 years' time, we're going to realize what the consequences of this is.
We're not against progress when progress is good for everyone.
I mean, this thing has gone from what was a $400 million project to just about $2 billion now, and we still have all kinds of land costs that are not settled.
I was expropriated in May.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is the consequence here. I've kind of held out as long as I can, but now they want it.
We signed off with the government on the Friday evening at the end of May. We were told that if we didn't sign then we would be expropriated on the Monday morning. I think that there was not a due amount of consideration given to landowners, business owners, and homeowners in the path of the new bypass.
In 2013, we discovered, attending a public open forum, that there was a new plan to move the Regina bypass 400 meters east of Tower Road. What that meant is that our business would no longer have access off Tower Road.
The 3M Group, who were a consulting firm hired by the province of Saskatchewan, ran into a bunch of problems. Certain companies and individuals didn't like that interchange that they had just finished spending so much time, effort, and money on designing. The problem solving meant moving Tower Road over 400 meters, going through the middle of a bunch of land that previously had not been included in it at all, and of course the corresponding increases in taxes.
The only good answer we received was that it was the engineers that decided where it should go. We interviewed the engineers in recorded conversations and discovered that they did not agree with the location, that they thought the bypass should be outside the city. They said it was the developers that influenced decision.
I don't feel that this is the right location. I agree that it should go elsewhere, that this isn't far enough away from the city, that it could take the northern route and be more efficient.
Why would you spend all this money on bringing more traffic into the city when you could divert it and bring it around the north side?
They're not listening to the people. The highway should have gone north of on the number one.
I was looking for retirement years coming up, and it's going to take probably 5 years to get there if I can.
Sometimes there are just things that you can't do anything about, so you just have to move on in life.
The government expropriated anybody's land that was in the way of the bypass. The troubling part with all of that is the appraised values varied from $5,000 an acre up to $400,000 an acre. The people that were paid the low numbers were, of course, the long-term land, home, and business owners that were impacted by the bypass. People that got the several $100,000 were the developers that bought land recently by the bypass and were able to influence the government to move it to accommodate their malls, their commercial developments.
There's some people that are still going through litigation on this matter and feel that they were not treated fairly. And when it's the government of Saskatchewan that's involved in those kind of things, that's problematic.
In jurisdictions such as Europe, with the construction of, most commonly, it's been high-speed train lines, there has always been local input. There's been as much civic involvement as there can be. There's rigorous environmental standards that have to be met. And all of these things didn't happen with a bypass, they didn't happen with a stadium, and they didn't happen with a GTH.
This is a project that has really gone off the rails because of the management of the Sask Party, and it's gone off the rails by way of cost with a massive overrun to the tune of $1 billion, which those are the hard-earned dollars of Saskatchewan people.
What could we do with an extra $1 billion in Saskatchewan? With the savings that could be realized with a northern route for a bypass around Regina, instead of the new half-ring road proposed by the government, we could build 3 brand new hospitals, 2 brand new stadiums with domes, or just repair and repave over 3,000 kilometers of Saskatchewan highways. Saskatchewan taxpayers need to know why. Why $1.88 billion?
The bypass was a terrible lost opportunity and a huge waste of resources that we're going to be feeling for another 30 years.
Back when this thing was going through committee and the legislature, the Bradwell governments fought tooth and nail against having any of the principal characters in this scheme brought before the legislature to be questioned. Sask Party candidates who were calling for an investigation, cabinet ministers in the Moe government have gone silent.
The problem with the bypass, in my view, in terms of accountability, is the choice of a P3, public-private partnership, to construct. Because what happens in a public-private partnership is accountability goes out the door.
The sad thing about P3s is that there seems to be huge accountability gaps. We can't be building infrastructure for the benefit of the builders. It has to be for the economy of where you're serving.
While Regina gets a nice bypass, all the citizens of the province are going to be paying for it for years, right? Or if it comes out of current budgeting, then what programs are we not able to fund?
The choice to make it a P3 shut out Saskatchewan companies from bidding on the project other than getting bits and pieces of the contract.
We had enough contractors in Saskatchewan that could have built the bypass for half the price.
Construction is a big part of employment, and it would have provided for our families through the employment of all the people that would work on that.
A semi-trailer causes 10,000 times as much damage to the pavement structure as an individual vehicle. So if we're spending billions of dollars on roads for semis, basically, that's what like a bypass will tend to be in this case, especially because you had to build it so thick, right? If you didn't have to build it so thick, it wouldn't cost $2 billion, right? Over that amount of time. So, are they paying 10,000 times as much as the rest of us are paying for that?
As the bypass plans were being made, so were the GTH plans being made. And so there was a convergence, I think, of those plans at some point where the government made a decision, and it's very difficult to find out who or why, but somehow free flow access to the GTH became incredibly important to the government.
I don't think there's been a lot of economic development that happened in the arm as a result of that. In other words, I don't see a service station anywhere along the bypass. Neither are there any stores of any kind or even industrial commercial developments.
Who are the companies? How much did the companies get paid? Who are the subcontractors? How many of them are from Saskatchewan? All of that stuff was protected by what they call commercial sensitivity for private individuals. And I think the public is being shorted through the use of the P3 model.
We believe when you're spending the precious hard-earned dollars of Saskatchewan people, their tax dollars, those public dollars, that we need to maximize the return for Saskatchewan people.
We could have said, no, we're not going to build a bypass. We are instead going to maybe toll heavy trucks that are coming through our city. We're going to maybe charge money to the people that we need to build these roads for. And then we're going to devote this money to maybe just having a facility that keeps them out of our way. But then we're going to invest in public transit in our city so that we, for a fraction of the cost of building all these extra roads, we can get everybody where they need to be.
This is a government that couldn't balance the budget during the best days in Saskatchewan's history, and that have put taxpayers on the hook for mismanaged projects and scandals like the bypass and the GTH for decades.
Imagine Saskatchewan spending $2 billion on like 21st century rail network. Imagine the world that we would be living in, getting to Saskatoon and back, going to Moose Jaw and back. Instead, we have a bypass that rings our city that nobody in the cities uses or needs.
What really struck me and got my attention was the comparison between the Coquihalla Highway and the cost of our bypass. When you look at the physical differences in these two projects, and you compare 324 kilometers of roadway, 4-lane, built through the mountains, and all of the obstacles that had to be overcome to do that, to the cost of paving 40 kilometers of 4-lane road on the flat prairie, and you realize that we've paid more for our bypass than the BC government paid for the Coquihalla Highway, that basically causes you to ask a lot of questions.
I think the people who knew that the way that the bypass was being undertaken was flawed. To their credit, they've been continuing to keep the issue alive because the issue hasn't gone away. We're still paying for the bypass. We're still paying for the stadium. We're still paying for the GTH. All of these things have not been some wonderful economic panacea.
One cannot deny the facts, and the facts that are pointed out demand some kind of scrutiny and explanation.
The government, in this instance, didn't listen to input from the small people. You know, I don't know who they listened to, but certainly they didn't listen to the everyday landowner in the arm of Sherwood. And as a result of that, I don't know if we can trust government.
We spent 20,000 hours in the last 8 years finding out the real truth about how governments operate. We sent a lot of letters. We did a lot of research. We talked to a lot of people. We have tried to keep the government accountable, single-handedly.
What are the standards that we expect, especially when we entrust people who we elect to protect our interests? And when we see evidence of that trust being abused, we've got to stand up and say something.
It just really boils down to government accountability and government honesty and transparency. We have seen none of that on this project.
The question is, where did the money go?
Trust